For as long as I can remember, my father Kjell has told us so many things about his life growing up in the old country that got us so interested. We wanted to know more, and he was more than happy to tell us. He was born on a small farm situated just outside Grimstad, a coastal town and municipality located in Øst-Agder County in southern Norway, about 188 miles southwest of Oslo and 35 miles northeast of Kristiansand. The family during the 1920s and 30s lived in the Fjæra community where my father was born and raised to my grandparents. My grandfather Theodore was one of Norway's youngest sea captains, who was in command of a small freighter, the SS Stranda, which he sailed back and forth across the Atlantic, mainly shipping coal between England and Canada, and lumber from Canada back to England. What was actually unique about him was his command of the English language, and since childhood he had learned English so well that he spoke with an Oxford dialect that he was constantly mistaken for an Englishman rather than a Norwegian. My grandmother, Ingrid, was a housewife and a gifted lady born with extrasensory perception, better known as ESP, which, for some obvious reasons, she could sense when my grandfather was returning home from sea, for at a certain time when a birch tree would line up with the ship just before it reached port, and when it came into line between the house and the ship, she would awaken suddenly, just like that. And it would happen every time the ship would pass that particular spot, which also proved a point later on in years when she sensed tragedy that involved my grandfather that would change family life forever. After my grandfather and his crew vanished in the North Atlantic, this was just 3 years before the start of the Second World War, my father was just 6 years old at the time when my grandmother had to sell the farm after purchasing a large house in Grimstad where she moved her young family. As a single mother, she had to provide for the family by having to go to work and having to care for her 3 children, but was very thankful in her mother-in-law, who was living at the house, to provide care for my father, aunt, and uncle. The Nazi occupation, he told us, was a very dark moment for Norway, when severe shortages of basic commodities led to mandatory rationing. How they had to dig up the front yard to sow and grow vegetables for their own consumption, and it caused an increase in hunting and fishing for many a Norwegian. Now my father and his younger brother Arnbrook, who had purchased a small boat that they sailed around for fun when they were younger, but they were practically old enough at that time to where they would actually find it useful just to take the boat out into the sea and sail to the coastal islands to hunt for albatross eggs, as well as go fishing to bring home to provide for the family to eat. After hearing everything he had told us, I encouraged my father to write his autobiography, but he never really got around to it. And since his passing in 2010, I decided to write a novel based on his life story, Memories of Norway, with fictional characters and a fictional town I named in his honor, while following the events that happened early in his life. While most of these events involving the family had actually occurred, I also decided to add a few little extra occurrences that never really did, but that was just in order to enhance the novel just a little bit, which I believe has become my bestseller out of the 4 novels I've written so far. The cover photo on the novel is a photo taken of Grimstad as it looked back in 1888, the town where my father would later be raised, and the town that this novel is centered upon.